Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Taylor Jones with Randy Wallace. We are the Cana Team, and today we're going to talk about the 2024 forecast for the housing market. What were some of the variables that they were predicting? What are some of the things that they thought were going to happen, and what actually did happen? So we're going to talk about it on a national level, asking the questions, but what did it look like on a local level? So Randy's going to help us with that. All right. So the very first thing, Randy, what's your experience with forecasts at the beginning of the year? Like, what do they serve any purpose? Do they have any value to the consumer?
Well, I think it does have value because you always want to stay on top of the market, and you can't just look back. Looking back is looking at trends, and you're following those trends to see what that can tell you about the future. Because the best thing you can do about buying and selling real estate is be informed, and be informed of what's going on in the market and what could happen. What do we think is going to happen? I mean, obviously we think in real estate always that prices are going to go up, that you're going to be buying property and have it appreciate. But there's degrees of that, right? And so forecasting is important as to the time you buy and the time you sell.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking back at the 2023 annual report, and the title of the 2023 annual report was 2023 was a challenging year for the U.S. housing market. Looking back at 2023, do you think that's a fair estimate as to what happened in real estate?
Well, it was a challenge because it was the dip. It was, again, we had this. Before COVID, we were expecting a downturn, right? That was the prediction then. Then COVID happened, and it changed everything. There was a dip for a couple of months, and then it took off because everybody's inside, not much to do, not as much to do getting out and about. So they're studying the market, looking at real estate, looking at areas of the country where you could do more, as opposed to areas of the country where you could do less as far as socializing or whatever. And it changed the marketplace. So that got rid of the prediction that said we were going to dive then or go down. But now, after COVID, that was an exhilaration point. That was a kind of a manufactured increase in the market that happened for a couple of years. So we did turn, and we expected to turn. We expected to go down. So it went down in 22, 23, 24, and the predictions, as far as the general one of just a declining market, were true from an overall perspective. But yes, it's important to look and to be educated about kind of what market we're heading into.
Yeah, I always think being informed as a buyer or seller, not just relying solely on your agent. I think it's one thing to have an agent, but you also got to have you got to make an educated decision as well. So we're here to serve on both parties. We're here to solve to be as a consultant. We're here to be your agent. We're here to be multiple things for you, and that's our goal. So when we talk about predictions, where do they come from? I want to give you a little context as to where they come from. These are coming from economists. These are coming from agents. These are coming from developers. What I did was I took a conglomerate of different opinions on what they thought from the 2024 housing market forecast. What they thought was going to happen, that's how I got it. Just so you understand, it's completely unbiased perspective. If it was just economists, you'd hear it from a economist lens. If it was just an agent, you'd hear it from an agent's lens. But what I want to do was take a handful of them because I love to study what's going on in the news. So the first one we'll talk about, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through what some of those talking points were, that the opinions that they were thinking. After I run through those talking points, Mr. Randy, you give us what you think, or what actually did happen, and from a local level as well. So obviously the biggest question is what's going to happen with housing prices. So that was the number one thing that they talked about. Okay, now here were some talking points as to what they predicted. There have been some rumors that housing prices are falling. Well, this isn't the truth for most markets across the U.S., so that's talking point number one. Talking point number two, we're kicking off 2024 with lower rates than last year, which has led to an uptick in buyer activity. However, inventory is still well below the norm. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. The lack of balance between supply and demand means we're going to keep seeing upward pressure on housing prices. Number four, the experts feel confident that prices will rise, not fall. In fact, many of them are already updating their recent forecast, indicating they could climb higher than previously projected. Number five, appreciation is what builds equity and makes home ownership a good investment over time. Number six, on top of that, home price appreciation also means if you're ready, willing, able to buy, that waiting just means it's going to cost more later. So, Mr. Randy, of those six, I gave you a lot. Do you feel like those were pretty accurate as to what happened?
I don't think they were that accurate, and here's why. What they were looking at, basically, they were predicting for things to turn around because 22 and 23 had been slow years. I did not think that was the case. I still started telling people in the first quarter of 24 that I thought this year of 24 was the time to buy, especially in the fourth quarter, which is where we are right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't think they took into account several things. One, they saw a little decrease in interest rate, and then what happened? We didn't get any more decreases in interest rate until the very end of the year.
Yep.
Okay. Number two, they didn't take into account it's an election year, and election years historically we go down. There's a lot of question marks around an election, and they didn't take that into account. They were just I don't think they gave enough weight to the surge that we had for COVID. And so it needed a correction, right? A market correction took place over pretty much all of 22, 23, and 24. Now, pricing did stay relatively stable.
Yep.
But it should have gone down more because the market went down more, right? So that's kind of a little bit of an anomaly. But some prices did go down, certain neighborhoods, certain regions of the country, whatever, because the market continued to slow through 2024, the residential market, here locally and nationwide in numbers. So anyway, a lot of those were not correct, but it was really just stalled.
Yeah.
Going we needed one more year. Most of those are what I would say is going to happen next year.
Yeah, it really feels like, us holding our breath as a market and not doing anything has caused those projections to push into next year, right? Because it seems like I do think people were reading headlines and making their decisions based on that when, if you look at our local market and even just some of the deals that we're doing right now, I mean, people are still buying. And actually, people are buying for under asking price on a lot of things right now, which show a great opportunity for buyers. That's what I'm talking about on a daily basis right now. So especially if you got cash, cash is king. And when you can move with cash, that's when you can find a good deal.
Yeah, because, what our statistics locally here show that our inventory has continued to go up, okay? Our sales have continued to come down. Now, neither one of those is a great change. It's, inventory has gone up by 10 to 15% over the year. Sales have gone down by about 10% over the year. Prices have remained relatively flat, but they have dipped a little bit in certain areas. And so, that's just setting the stage for, again, an increase in 2025 because it seems to be flattening out. Our sales seem to be turning around, picking up a little bit. Interest is picking up. And if that inventory flattens out and sales pick up, what does that mean? That means inventory will go down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That means prices will stabilize and maybe go up a little. And so that's what I'm looking for in 2025, is to be more of what they predicted in 2024.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, here's the last headline in regards to prices, and I just want you to kind of give your input on this. The sub headline of the question of what's going to happen with home prices was, there's still a lot of people who worry about a price crash that's on the horizon. Can you clear up any of that confusion that with some insight? So, I think that's the number one question I got, or number one response I probably have gotten over the last 2 years is, I'm waiting for prices. I'm waiting for the market to crash. What's your experience with that?
Well, the market can crash. It's crashed back in 2007, in 2008 time period. It crashed back in 1988 to some degree, mainly with investment properties. Those are far and long between. That's like 20 years apart. And so 2007, 8, some people would say, well, maybe that's 20 years ago, almost 17. Maybe we're due for a crash at some point in time. But there's no guarantee of that, and there has to be economic reasons for that. Again, wars and threats of wars and things can cause that, but there's no real, right now we've had, like I say, a little bit of a downturn, a little bit of a correction, a little bit of a pause. That's what recessions do. It doesn't have to be a crash. And so again, I'd say right now the builders are still buying property, counting on our area, talking about our area specifically. Builders are still buying land, anticipating growth. We're still projecting growth. We're expecting interest rates to stabilize and come down a little bit more, and housing supply to be decent. And so I think for our area at least, we're certainly counting on the market growing. And if it slows again or stays down a little bit, I think it'll still be a soft landing, and it's going to turn around. I still think it's going to turn around, and numbers are going to increase this year.
Yeah.
I don't see any kind of a crash unless, again, world events can cause a crash.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the two variables that affect the housing prices now, we're going to talk about mortgage rates and we're going to talk about inventory, but we'll be pretty brief on these. The question was, what will happen with mortgage rates this year, 2024? So let me give you the talking points from the predictions of 2024. Number one, mortgage rates have been trending down since their peak in October of 2023. Remember, rates are volatile by nature, so they don't move in a straight line. Experts say that the downward trend could continue, but no one knows for sure where or when they're going to go. There's just too many factors that impact that. What's important to remember is any decrease in mortgage rate gives your purchasing power a boost. Even a small change can have a big impact on your monthly payment. And then lastly, if you're ready to make a move, the first step is getting pre-approved. This will not only show the sellers that you're serious, but will also let them know how much you can borrow before you start searching. So, Randy, of those 5 or maybe 4 talking points that are actually predictions, do you have any opinion as to what actually happened with the mortgage rates?
Well, the mortgage rates, like I say, they stayed up, and even when they crept down a little bit at the interest rate drop, they pushed back up. But I think the optimism going into next year for business, for the economy, for growth in our area, I think those have a little bit more weight. The interest rates, I think, still have some room to move downward, just for a healthy market. But again, it's not going to be a great deal. It's going to be a slight thing. I mean, again, most of my career, my almost 48 years now career, interest rates, have historically been over 6%.
Mm-hmm.
We've only had a couple of years when it's been under 6%. Mm-hmm. So I'm not anticipating us to go back to a 3 or 4% mortgage at any time soon. I would like to see. I think interest rates will stabilize between 5.5% and 6%, and that would be the lowest. But I'm happy if they stabilize at 6% or 6.25%.
Yeah,
and it's not a bad interest rate for us to be living and working under.
Yeah. So. Yep. And the last question is inventory. So there's not many talking points on the inventory side, but what they asked was, will we see more housing inventory in 2024? The past year saw the lowest amount of homes sold in years. So will we see some activity in the building side with new inventory? But also in just resale inventory as well. So, Randy, what did you see on the inventory side in 2024?
Well, the inventory side, like I say, the inventory grew, okay, in both new homes and in resale homes, but more in resale homes. I think in the new homes, the builders were holding back. They hold back a little bit if they could see sales slowing, so they weren't putting out as much inventory. What I see, they have property. They're looking down the road to increase inventory. So I think that's going to help actually keep prices stable. Yeah. I see 2025 is still a good year to buy. I see this first quarter 2025 is probably the best time to buy. But I see the whole year going pretty good, because if they increase inventory and the rates continue to come down, that's going to keep prices down there. It's going to keep affordability up. It's going to be more affordable to buy here. So but I think the new home market is going to increase. I think the new homes, they contained themselves to some degree in 24 due to the market. That's going to help them and help us in 2025.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are the three forecasts that they have. The three variables that affect any market are the three we talked about today. Probably my take home for you guys, if I was to share anything, was I circled it after we talked about it earlier. It was the talking point with prices. And it said this: expected home price appreciation means if you're ready, willing, and able to buy, waiting just costs more later. In the years that I've been in real estate, that's the number one regret that people have. The buyer's remorse is actually they didn't buy it sooner. I hate that it's coming from real estate agents, but it really is the truth. When's the best time to buy? Now's the best time to buy. And it's stood the test of time, because people actually have more buyer's remorse on the back end. The only time I see buyer's remorse is when you overspend. So work with somebody that can help consult you that accordingly. Randy, any last pieces of information or advice?
That's it. What you just said. You have somebody that's competent and knows the market and can help you through the process. Just double checking, because there are plenty of properties in that resale market, and that's one reason the inventory went up. Is a lot of people just weren't willing. A lot of sellers of resale property were not willing to drop their prices from historical highs of a few years ago, the COVID effect. And you can overpay for a property. You don't want to overpay for anything. The market price is strong enough, but you need an agent to make sure that you're buying at the market price. That's the biggest thing. Because you can get caught, anybody can get caught up. I can get caught up in the euphoria of buying a new home, and this looks great and it's beautiful and there's nothing like it, and they're asking $1 million, and man, that sounds cheap compared to where I bought before. And yet an experienced agent can tell me, well, the market price really should be $850,000 for this. And sometimes we get caught up in the euphoria, and we just leap in. You need a good local expert in any market.
Yeah.
to help you along the way.
Yeah, I mean that's a perfect way to segue this. You know, we've got agents that specialize in different niches in different areas of Horry County. So if there's any way we can help you, if you have any specific questions on prices, on mortgage rates, on inventory that's in a specific area of this county, we're here for you. So please, like I say all the time, give us a like, shoot us a comment. We'd love to see what you have to say, what's going on locally for you, and how we can maybe give you some advice on that. Subscribe to the channel so you could stay updated on everything real estate that we have to share with you. And again, if you're in town,